All right, let's talk about SAP MM. When you hear that, you probably think, purchasing, inventory, software, boring stuff. But that's not the real story. Not even close. The truth is, SAP Materials Management is one of the most powerful risk management systems a company has. It's not really about ordering parts. It's about deciding who is on the hook when things inevitably go wrong. And that right there, that's the key. Think of it like that. Every single function we're about to look at is, at its heart, a lever. It's a lever that moves risk and responsibility from your supplier to you, or even from one department inside your own company to another. So let's pull back the curtain and see how it works.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts here with master data. And this is not just boring data entry. No way. You should think of it as writing the fundamental laws of physics for your entire supply chain. Every single decision the system makes, every automatic order it places, it's all governed by the rules you write right here. If you get this wrong, you're basically baking failure right into the system from day one. And the most critical piece of that DNA, it's something called the Purchasing Info Record, or PIR. It seems so simple. It's basically the contract terms for one specific part from one specific supplier. The price, how long it takes to get here, the smallest batch you can possibly order. It's all defined in the PIR. But this is where one tiny little data field can have a massive, massive financial impact. So let's say someone accidentally sets the minimum order quantity way too high in the PIR. Well, the system, it's just following its rules, right? It's going to start ordering huge batches you don't need, leading to what we call inventory bloat. Or, even worse, set the lead time too short. Now the system thinks parts arrive way faster than they really do, causing constant production stoppages and literally millions in emergency freight costs. It's such a tiny lever with absolutely huge consequences. Okay, so once we've written those fundamental rules with our data, the system can now turn them into actual commitments. This next layer is all about making legally binding promises and using all that data to try and predict and plan for the future. And in this world, you've basically got two ways to buy things. First, there's a purchase order, a PO. Super simple. It's a one-time order for a specific thing. But the real strategic powerhouse is the scheduling agreement, or SA. This isn't just a single order, it's a long-term relationship. It's a master contract that governs all your purchases for maybe a year or more. This is the engine that makes things like just-in-time manufacturing actually possible. And here's the brilliant part about how a scheduling agreement manages risk. It's not just one big order, it's a moving timeline. Far out in the future, you have the forecast zone. That's just a friendly heads up to your supplier, no commitment. A little closer in, you hit the trade-off zone, where maybe you can make some small changes. But then you hit the firm zone, and the moment an order enters this window, boom, it becomes a legally binding commitment. So you see, the firm zone isn't just some technical setting, it's a battlefield. This is the exact point where risk officially transfers from your supplier to you. Production, they want that zone to be super short so they can stay flexible. Finance, they want it long for cost stability. And procurement is stuck right in the middle. The length of this one zone determines who is holding the bag for all that inventory. And believe me, it is a major point of internal political fighting. Okay, now we get to the action. This is where all those digital promises and plans we made come crashing into the physical world of trucks, pallets, and, of course, invoices. So picture this. A truck shows up at your warehouse. Your team does a goods receipt, or GR. At that exact moment, the system automatically makes a financial entry. It puts the value of those goods into this special temporary account. The best way to think of it is as a financial waiting room, and it's called GR/IR. Then, a few days, maybe a few weeks later, the supplier's invoice shows up. When accounting processes that invoice, the system goes back to that exact same financial waiting room and makes the opposite entry. And if everything is perfect, poof, the two transactions cancel each other out and the waiting room is empty again. But what happens if they don't match? I mean, what if you received 100 parts but the invoice says you owe for 110, or the price is just plain wrong? Well, that GR/IR account won't clear, and that is exactly why auditors are absolutely obsessed with it. This simple waiting room is a critical internal control that shines a spotlight on every discrepancy between what you physically got and what you're being asked to pay for. It's a huge, huge point of financial risk. All right, we've gone from the tiny data points to the contracts to the real-world execution. Now, let's pull the camera way back and look at the big picture, the strategic tools that let you intentionally design how your entire procurement machine runs to handle risk. One of the most powerful strategic levers you have is something called the quota arrangement. It's a really simple rule you can set that basically tells the system, hey, don't give all my business to just one supplier, split it up. And you get to define the exact percentage for each one.
So for a really critical component, you might set up a rule just like this one. 60% of our orders automatically go to our main supplier, supplier A, but always, always send 40% to our backup, supplier B. From then on, the system just enforces that rule every single time it generates an order. No questions asked. And listen, this is so much more than just sharing the business around. By making sure your backup supplier is getting a steady stream of orders, you are actively keeping their production line warm and your relationship with them active. This is business continuity planning in action. If supplier A has a factory fire or some shipping crisis, you can immediately pivot all your volume to supplier B without missing a beat. You have literally designed away a massive supply chain risk before it even happened.
But how do you decide which parts even need a quota arrangement or a long-term scheduling agreement? Well, that's where a strategic playbook like the Krajiak Matrix comes in. It helps you classify everything you buy based on its financial impact and its supply risk. Your strategic items, the high-risk, high-impact stuff, that's where you use these powerful risk mitigation tools. You treat them completely differently than you treat, say, non-critical items like office supplies. This framework guides how you set up your entire system.
So let's bring all this together. It's so easy to get lost in the sea of acronyms, PIR, SA, GR/IR, but that's not what really matters. What matters are the underlying levers of control and risk that these things represent. Your master data, that's your lever for designing the future. The firm zone is your lever for defining the exact moment that risk becomes yours. The GRIR account is your lever for maintaining financial control. And the quota arrangement is your lever for building resilience against a disaster. Each one serves a critical strategic risk management purpose. When you boil it all down, it comes to this. Every one of these terms, these settings, these functions, they aren't just software features. They are the levers that you and your company use, whether you know it or not, to decide who holds the risk. So the final question I'll leave you with is this. In your own business, do you actually know where these levers are set? Are you intentionally designing where your risk lies? Or is the system just kind of making those multi-million-dollar decisions for you on autopilot? Who truly holds the risk in your supply chain?